Welcome to the Impact Room, brought to you by Douglas Jackson, who help you hire more impactful, diverse leaders who stay for longer and are more successful. The Impact Room is a business, CX, and leadership podcast where exceptional, diverse, and impactful leadership and wisdom is shared. We dive deep into pressing topics that impact your customer-led business, featuring interviews with CEOs, COOs, Chief Customer, Chief People Officers, directors, influential leaders, and subject matter experts who share their lived experiences, top tips, thoughts, advice, and industry trends to help elevate existing and future talent. So let's dive into our next episode, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, or share if you enjoy this content. Thank you. Hello, I'm Michelle Ansell, Managing Partner from Douglas Jackson, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Cordelia Johnney. Cordelia is a head of EDI, which is Equality, Diversity and Inclusion at Stonewater Housing, who are one of the largest social housing providers in the UK. Cordelia has been working to embed equity, diversity and inclusion into Stonewater's DNA and was recently recognised as one of the top 10 individuals in the exceptional inclusion category. Well done. As well as Stonewater being recognised as a top 10 employer at the recent Ethnicity Awards. Cordelia also joins us straight from Parliament, where she was yesterday, where I believe you were on the APPG for Governance and Inclusive Leadership. So hello, and what does that mean, Cordelia?
It means I sit on an all-party parliamentary group for governance and inclusive leadership.
Fabulous. And you had a good day?
It was a great day.
Good. Well, thank you for joining us. Really looking forward to hearing from you. So shall we start with how you get into a role in ED&I? What was your path?
When I finished university, I did a law degree. Wasn't sure if I wanted to become a barrister or a solicitor. So took a year out, had a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Coming from typical Caribbean parents, you can only take so much time out before you actually have to start earning and get on with life. So at the insistence of my parents, I went along to the job centre and said, actually, need a job. And they were like, oh, you're a bit overqualified for what we've got coming in.
Yeah.
But we have a role at a race equality council.
Okay.
Didn't know what one was, but anyone who knows me knows that as a child, I was always into things being fair. I'm a middle child.
Right.
As far as my family are aware, I claim I suffer from middle child syndrome. Yeah, everything is not fair, and you learn about fairness pretty quickly. So I went along to Race Equality Council. Met a man called Dowd Lawrence, who became an informal mentor.
Yeah.
He was the race equality officer, and he basically said, if you handle our complainant aid, I'll teach you everything there is to know about race equality.
Okay, yeah.
And as I say in the Caribbean, so said, so done.
Yeah.
Quickly found my feet, did a lot of tribunal work, was quite successful, secured tribunal training from the Commission for Racial Equality, and supported them on some of their cases as a very, very, very junior officer, and worked at Waltham Forest Race Equality Council for a number of years. And then I moved on to Haringey, moved on to Bath and North East Somerset Council as a race equality officer, and quickly learned that actually there are more protected characteristics than just race, and actually I have more than one and needed to get involved, and that is how I got into ED&I.
Wow, fantastic. What a journey and what a foundation
Yeah.
for the position. So thank you so much for sharing that. So when we spoke, you talked about how you and the organisation that you work with, Stonewater, wanted to be an EDI thought leader. So how do you go about achieving that, and what would you say are the 3 key learnings you would be able to share with us today?
Yeah, one of the things, Stonewater was created as a merger of
Mm,
a couple of housing associations. It
yeah.
was Raglan, of which I came from. I've been there about a year when the merger happened.
Okay.
Jefferson and Marches. So the two organisations merged. One of the things that the organisation had said is that it would like to be thought leaders in several areas, one of them being equality and diversity.
Hmm.
How did we go about it? We did what everybody else did.
Mm,
For the first few years, we did what everybody else did. And we were legally compliant. We did everything we had to do to be compliant, but we weren't, it wasn't inspiring. We
right.
didn't do anything inspiring. And then I moved departments. I moved from transformation into the people team. And with my manager then, Jenny Sawyer, we had a conversation about, you know, we want to do more. We want to be able to do more. We want to break break into being a thought leader.
Hmm.
And we had a session with an organisation, the Housing Diversity Network.
Okay.
They came in and they did some work with our board and leadership. And then we had our EDI board meeting, and I showed Deloitte's film Inclusion Begins with I.
Okay. Yeah.
And we looked at that and we thought, we want to do that. We really want to do that. And the first step was looking at bringing your whole self to work and allowing colleagues to bring their whole self to work. And we had spoken about this as an organisation before, and the organisation, we, like every other organisation, we got bogged down in things around, does it mean that people can dress how they want, and will people dress inappropriately to come to work? And we quickly realized that actually that was the superficial element.
Right.
It was about people really being able to be themselves, to express themselves, to feel comfortable and feel included, and to create that family feeling within the organization, whilst people being strong enough and respectful enough to respect somebody else's choices.
Yeah.
So one of the first things we did was created that as a basis for what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then we decided that we would just try new things, and we would start by trying to engage our colleagues.
Hmm.
So my first point would be engage your colleagues.
Yeah.
Go out of your way to engage your colleagues in talk to them, inspire them, make them feel part of the journey, because you can't make the changes that we wanted to without them being on board.
Mm.
EDI is not just the responsibility of the individual who's got EDI in their job title.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the responsibility of everybody within the organisation, from your board all the way down to the last person you recruited. It's
Mm.
everybody's responsibility. And to ensure that happens means that you have to engage everybody and get them to feel part of the change,
Yeah.
and get them to feel that they can actually commit to that change and bring things to that change. So that was the first thing we started to do. We started to engage colleagues, and as we engaged them, they began to feel more valued, and we started to build that family feel within the organization.
Yeah.
Um, the second thing I think I would say is plot your own journey.
Right.
A lot of organizations look at what everybody else is doing and then do
Mm.
what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
And when we did that, we were compliant, but we were only compliant. We weren't really thinking about who the people were, who was coming into the organization. So we've stepped away from every other housing association's journey, and we plot our own journey. We do things the way we want to do, or as we say, the Stonewater way.
Yeah.
So we plot our own journey. That doesn't mean you can't learn from others. That
Of
doesn't mean you
course.
have to reinvent the wheel, but it does mean that somebody else's wheel may not fit ours.
Mm.
So I'm not saying that everybody should do what we're doing. I'm saying we're just going to do what suits us best.
Mm.
And one of the things we do is we look at new and innovative initiatives, and we're not afraid to try them out. And if they don't work, we won't do that again. And if
Mm.
they sort of work but not quite fit, we'll tweak them to make them fit.
Mm.
So we've introduced a reverse mentoring program that we've tweaked to make very Stonewater. And we've introduced a number of other initiatives that are very Stonewater. And we're not afraid to bring in celebrity guest speakers
Mm.
to who share our message. We don't bring them in just because they're celebrities. We bring them in because what they're talking about is actually what we're already talking about.
Yeah.
So we've had people like John Amici and John Barnes, and John Barnes, we brought him in because he was talking about being uncomfortable,
Mm.
getting comfortable being uncomfortable about racism.
Yeah.
And we were having those conversations after the murder of George Floyd,
Mm.
and he seemed like the perfect fit.
Mm.
And the other thing he brought to the table was he had the draw to bring people who normally wouldn't go to an EDI session
Yes.
to an EDI session.
Yeah.
So it was reaching the people who weren't already converted.
Mm.
And that's helped. So those initiatives help our colleagues to feel valued and to feel part of the change.
Mm.
Um, the other thing I'd say is don't be afraid to ask for help.
Mm.
Don't be afraid to reach out to other people, other sectors, um, people outside of the EDI world, and ask for help. Whenever we've needed help, we've reached out outside of our organization
Mm.
and brought people in to help us.
Mm.
We've built up good relations with contractors who are not normally the type of contractors housing associations would work with,
Yeah.
because they're able to bring something fresh to the EDI table.
Mm.
So I guess those are the things that have helped us make that change
Mm.
and have enabled us to get to that position of a top 10 outstanding employer.
Mm.
Working with the investing in ethnicity maturity matrix is something that no other housing association was doing.
Mm.
But we looked at all of the other tools that housing associations were using and thought, actually, let's use this one.
Mm. Very good. Interesting. Though, such good points there. And what I heard in what you were saying was, one, you were very intentional in your approach, I think, and authentic as well. As you say, I think there is no right way. There's your way, sort of thing.
Yeah,
I think from that, and also that, as you say, that being confident, courageous enough to fail and sort of get things wrong and sort of learn from that. Because I think, and you might have a take on this. I think when it comes to ED&I, as you say, there are those that are already converted. They're in the conversation. They're happy to be involved and they want to do the right thing. And then there's those that aren't. And sometimes I feel there is this, it's fear more than anything. It's sort of either it doesn't apply to me, but as you've said, it's everyone's responsibility. It doesn't apply to me, but then I'm fearful of saying the wrong thing. What if I say something, or what if we try something and it puts the cat amongst the pigeons? It creates difficulties or uncomfortableness, which you talked about as well. And I think that's what holds a lot of companies or people back. What,
yeah.
what do you think?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think there is that it is this two-stage thing. It's like, well, actually, I don't have to get involved because it doesn't apply to me. It's not my issue. It's never going to impact on me. Well, look around. Everybody's a player in this world, and it may not impact you personally, but it may impact somebody you care about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really important that you're aware and you pay attention. I always say that it's really important to be an ally because you're the secret weapon. Allies are the secret weapon. You've got people with different protected characteristics, and they're standing up and they're talking and they're calling things out all the time. And what the rest of the people hear is blah 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 blah. But then when somebody who reflects them says the same thing, it's like, oh, right.
Yeah.
And so allies have that ability to be a secret weapon. So if you think it doesn't impact on you, take a step back and have a look, because it really does, and you need to get involved. And the other thing is fair. Don't be afraid of getting it wrong. If your intention is good, nobody's going to turn around and say you did a bad thing. What they're going to do is offer you the help and support so that you don't get it wrong again.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very important points. And I think I saw a video the other day about injustice, and you talked about fairness, and it isn't a fair world, and you hear that a lot, don't you? And but injustice is everywhere, and it may not affect us today, but it might affect us tomorrow. And if we don't do something today, then it's not helping tomorrow, is it? And ultimately, as you've said, and we keep going back to it, it is everyone's responsibility. But that courage, that being brave and not frightened, and as we've said, intentional, really helps. So, I mean, why, we've probably talked about a lot of this, but why do you think most organisations don't get to shift the dial? So when it comes to EDI, what do you think that they sort of struggle with in your experience?
It, two things. One is the business case. You have to make EDI seem like it's profitable. And it shouldn't be that way, but it is, because businesses are about making profit, regardless of what sector you're in. If you're in the not-for-profit sector like us, the profits you make go back into the business so you can keep doing what you do. If you're in the profit-making business sector, well, you need to make the profits to keep the money rolling in. But it's EDI is more than that. So don't get comfortable and get tied up with what's the business case. Companies sit back and it's like, well, we've done what we need to do to be compliant, and that's enough. Well, actually, you will become a lot more profitable if you go the next step, and if you move from being compliant to actually caring about your colleagues and your customers, because they'll care about you as an organization. Your colleagues will work harder and become more flexible and do the things you need to do to be profitable, and your customers will walk and talk and say what a great business you are, and you'll get more custom. So it is about moving away from just being compliant and just thinking about, well, the business case says we need to be compliant. That's all we need to do. If you want to be a really profitable and really highly thought of organization, then go that next step. Think about who you're providing that business to and how you can actually provide the best business to them. We have a saying in the people team: happy chickens lay lots of eggs.
True.
You make your colleagues happy, they'll provide the best service for your customers. Your customers will be happy and you'll be profitable.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is so much driven through purpose and value, especially with the younger generations coming through. They seem to be very aligned to this, very interested in what the business stands for, who's at the top table, who's making the decisions, what are they talking to, what values do they hold, all of those things.
That whole ethical thing has become super important for the younger generations. They don't want to hear what the bottom line is straight away. They want to hear how you're getting there. What service are you
Yeah.
delivering? How are you putting your best foot forward?
Mm.
How do you choose which door to go through? Do the right door, do the
Yeah.
right thing door, or do the wrong thing door?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. So, I mean, we've talked a little bit about your own sort of complex disabilities. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that, perhaps your lived experience, and also why you feel more comfortable, I think, being open about those same abilities?
I do have complex disabilities. I've had hidden disabilities. I now have some non-hidden disabilities. When you see me, everybody automatically knows, well, yeah, she's a disabled woman. It's taken me a long time in my personal life to come to terms with that. It's taken me a huge amount of time, and my colleagues in Stonewater will verify this. It took me, oh gosh, at least 8 years to consider even applying for a blue badge. It
Mm.
was like almost if I applied for a blue badge, then I was admitting to myself that
Mm.
I'm disabled,
Mm.
even though it was blatantly obvious and everyone was like, get a blue badge.
Mm.
Um, I'd say the final step for me was I walk with crutches, walking aids. I recently treated myself to some Diamante crutches so that when I go out, and I do go out and I still party, when I go out and party, I'm not taking the ones that the hospital gave me. I'm actually taking my Diamante ones. So when we went to the award ceremony, couple weeks ago, I had my Diamante crutches
Nice.
on show, and I'm actually really proud that I'm a
Yeah.
disabled woman now. But as I say, it's taken me a long time. I suffer with a rare form of sickle cell, which when it takes control of me, can put me into hospital for over 2 months.
Mm.
My last spell in hospital was just over 2 months long. And one of the things that has helped me get comfortable with my disability is the fact that I work for a great organization who has allowed me to be open about my disability. And I don't worry that if I'm in hospital for a long period of time, that I won't have a job to come back to.
Mm.
As long as I keep delivering when I'm here, the organization supports me through those bad times. And
Mm.
Stonewater has been really good at enabling colleagues to get the correct reasonable adjustments that they need and to provide them with support through their disability so that they can come out of the other side smiling. So it has been a really difficult time and a really challenging time. But my journey has also been the catalyst to help other colleagues within the organisation feel that they can be open about their disabilities. I'm also neurodiverse, and Stonewater has become very supportive of our neurodiverse colleagues. And as we are on our EDI journey, the organisation has been welcoming and allowed colleagues to build the trust to be able to actually openly say, yeah, I'm disabled, this is what I need. Or actually, if they're not comfortable with using the term disabled, I've got challenges and I need reasonable adjustments. And the organization has been really good. We understand that um there's a long waiting list for people to get neurodiversity assessments. So we put aside a small pot of money so that if a colleague has been on the waiting list for a long time, they can apply to the organisation to get some of the money for an assessment.
Okay.
So the organisation along our EDI journey has learnt to become very supportive of colleagues to enable colleagues to bring their whole self to work and to do their best when they're
Mm.
there.
Mm. Well, thank you for sharing your journey, and it's interesting because obviously yourself as somebody that's championed, fairness and obviously so much equality and diversity and inclusion. It's took you yourself a long journey to sort of be comfortable even accepting and admitting that yourself. So I think to people like you perhaps who don't want to talk to their organization, I mean, do you have any sort of help or advice? I mean, you've given a lot already, but is there anything that you would say to them or to perhaps organizations? Because I know some of them do try and ask and sort of engage employees, but employees aren't always comfortable, like you've said,
Yeah.
about telling or coming in case I don't know, I don't want to put the words into your mouth or theirs, but maybe they're treated differently or is there a stigma attached?
There is this fear that you will be treated different,
Mm,
and there is this fear that you will be seen to be less than.
mm,
And in my career journey, there have been times where I have been treated less than,
mm,
particularly around issues of neurodiversity. Um, and you worry, and there is this, can I trust this organization? If I disclose this, will it harm my prospects? Will it reduce the opportunities I have for progression? Will they want to get rid of me?
mm,
And a good organization will actually work with the employee to actually support them with their disability,
mm,
um, support them to manage their disability.
mhm,
Um, I'm pretty keen to say that sometimes my disability manages me.
mm,
And when I'm happy and when I'm comfortable, I'm in a position where I manage my disability.
mm,
And a good organization will support you to manage your disability rather than letting it get out of control and it managing you. And I think there is a need for a coming together of minds of the disabled colleague and the organization, in particular the manager, to have a discussion, whether it be an informal or a formal discussion
mhm,
about the disability, because you can't expect people to know
mhm,
what you're going through with your
mhm,
disability. I have this belief that nobody carries around a working crystal ball.
mm,
So unless we tell people
mm,
what's going on with us, we can't expect them to know.
mm,
And there are times when we think, well, you should have known. Well,
mm, mm,
how should you have known? So unless you're open, the organisation can't put the support in, can't build in reasonable adjustments, can't help you.
mm,
But you have to be in a position where you're comfortable enough to trust the organisation to be able to share that,
mm,
because there are a lot of organisations out there that are not as good as they should be.
mm,
Um, but then you have to put yourself in that situation. And I'd say that Stonewater is probably the first organisation where I've been fully open
mm,
about what I need to progress.
mm,
And that has allowed me to progress throughout the organisation to the position that I hold now.
mm. Is there something that you think a business can do to its individual leaders or help its individual leaders to be more open or accessible to individuals who want to have that conversation? Because I think even if the business is doing the right things, an individual leader can be or make all the difference, can't they, if they're not open or don't seem open to having this conversation with somebody, then that can hold the individual back, I expect. And likewise, the company may not be great at EDI or maybe on a
Yeah.
journey, but the individual leader could be a fantastic ally or somebody that could be approached. I mean, do you have any thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
it goes back to that whole thing about allyship.
Mm,
Yeah. Whilst I say you can't expect an individual leader to know, you do know when you've got somebody who's different within
mm,
your team
mm,
or within your organization. And as an ally, you should be in a position where you want to learn, you want to find out more.
mm,
So don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to have the conversation. If it were a member of your family or if it were
Mm.
one of your friends, you would ask.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask. And then you don't have to ask them every intricate
Detail.
detail. What
Mm.
you need is to ask enough and then go off and do some learning.
Mm.
Be able to have that conversation. There's nothing to say you can't sit down and have a cup of tea or have a virtual cup of tea
Mm.
and have a discussion. And
Mm.
it's about being empathetic
Mm.
and being open enough to say, you know, I may be barking up the wrong tree here,
Mm.
but you know, maybe we can have a conversation. I noticed that you're struggling a bit, or that you're not really a morning person. Is there anything, do you want to talk about it? And give the person the opportunity to have that discussion and then
Mm.
go off and learn. There are so many organizations out there. Um, Google for a start, go off and
Mm.
learn and
Mm.
just learn as much as you can and have that conversation. I
Mm.
know when I've had conversations with individuals about the things I go through, um, it's a weight off my shoulders
Mm.
because I don't have to mask anything. I can
Mm.
actually, going back to bringing my whole self to work, bring my whole self to work. There are days where um, they're not brilliant for me. I wake up, I'm in pain. They're not
Mm.
brilliant.
Mm.
We at Stonewater we have what we call green days,
Mm.
where we work hybridly, so mostly virtually, like this session now. And
Yeah.
on a green day, if I'm having a bad day, I can text my manager or text a colleague and say, actually, I need a green day today, and I can work off camera. I don't have to work as hard as I would normally work
Mm.
and just get through the day and
Mm.
still manage to be a bit productive.
Mm.
And they've helped support colleagues throughout the organization. But we wouldn't have introduced Green Days if colleagues weren't having those discussions about what
Mm.
their needs are.
Mm. Mm.
And I think those types of organizational reasonable adjustments work for everybody
Mm.
because we know that if you've had a really raucous night before, a green day is really helpful.
Mm. Mm.
So it's about enabling everybody to be productive. So
Mm.
having those conversations are really important and educating yourself on different impairments, different needs of your team is really important. And that's part of being an ally as well as part of being a good manager.
Excellent. And before we go on to the next question, just looking at talking about your diamante crutches, I know we've talked about your passion for something else
Oh
in
God.
your attire. Do you want to sort of talk a bit to that, just in case the executive or managing director or CEO is listening, and they might be
Yes.
there might be something. What are you sort of passionate about in that
I have a
respect,
passion
Cordelia?
for Nike trainers.
Mhm.
I
And
have,
we shan't ask how many you've got. Is
no,
that
please don't. But yeah, I have a passion for Nike trainers.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely adore them. I have more than I care to mention.
Mm.
I have a shed load that the most I've done is tried on, and
Yeah.
yet I still can't stop purchasing them. It's a running joke here at Stonewater, particularly in the people team. Yeah, and yeah, if I were to leave, everybody knows I would leave and run off and work for Nike in a heartbeat.
Mm. Well, if anyone's listening and fancies sending Cordelia her own personalised set of Nikes, I'm sure she'd be very interested in getting some of those.
Yes. I am a Nike ID member. I actually have designed. I've got designer pairs of trainers with my nicknames
Right.
on each
Yeah.
shoe. Yeah, more than I care to remember.
Fabulous. So, I mean, you talked about some of the changes you made at an entry level, and certainly your apprenticeship scheme we talked a little bit about. So, did you want to tell us how you saw a shift in those appointments and the impact that that's had?
Yeah, we we are working to as at Stonewater, we're working to become what we call a consciously inclusive organization. from top down, bottom up. So we've recently introduced a program which we call Roots into Stonewater, which enables us to look at areas of the business where we can bring people into the organization and support them from different communities, different walks of life, different backgrounds. And Roots into Stonewater is a long running program that has several aspects of it. One is the ability to work with graduates. So we have a graduate program which we bring in. It's to be honest, the graduate program started before the Roots into Stonewater program.
Right.
But what we had found was that the graduates we were getting weren't really diverse. And when we started the Roots into Stonewater, we looked at the graduate program and thought, actually, we really want this to be a really diverse program.
Mm-hmm.
The graduate program offers graduates from different universities around the UK the opportunity to come and work for Stonewater as graduate interns for a year, and with the possibility of being able to apply for a post if one is available at the end of their time. This year's graduates are the most diverse we've ever had.
Mm.
They are so brilliant, so keen. They bring a lot to the organisation. They get involved. They are really engaging. Um, and it's really fantastic because the organisation gets to see the quality of diverse candidates who are out there. We are also looking at our apprenticeship programme and looking at how we ensure that we get a really diverse cohort and bringing in, and it'd be similar to the graduate programme, but at a different level. We're also hoping in the future that we can start to support customers to come in through the Roots into Stonewater program.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, we'll be able to offer people who don't normally see housing or Stonewater as a viable employer,
Mm-hmm.
as an option. Because what people forget about housing is it's not just housing managers and housing officers
Mm-hmm.
who work at a housing association. We've got people in tech,
Mm-hmm.
IT, finance,
Mm-hmm.
development, as well as our customer experience, where we actually have the housing officers and housing managers. We've
Yeah.
got executive assistants and admin assistants. The people team has a huge array of different job opportunities. So housing is a really good opportunity for somebody who wants to build a career and wants
Yeah.
to progress.
Mm. And that's such a good point, because I speak to so many housing associations as well, and they do seem to struggle or fear that they're not a good employer. How would we attract, who would want to come and work for us? But as you've said, literally every type of role almost is going to be available to them at some point. Finance directors, as you say, even now chief data officers, chief
Yeah.
technology officers, chief customer officers, all these points. And we even talked about your role, didn't we? The head of ED&I, and you're looking to that next director appointment, and the
Yeah.
executive director EDI, and sort of when Stonewater hopefully will make a director opportunity within ED&I for yourself as well.
Would love it.
Unless, of course, Nike comes
Yeah.
knocking. That's the only thing that will stop that. But
Yeah.
yes, go on.
It is really important for people to actually see housing as an opportunity, and people
Mm,
from different communities. We take part in Pride to get the message out into the community
mm,
that we're a viable organisation to come and work for, to Notting Hill so that we can reach the Black and Asian communities. Um, we give out information with QR codes to take you to our Discover Stonewater page. So it's just so people can see the type of things we do and realize that you're coming into a family who will embrace you and welcome you and include you. And I think that that's a really big word when you're talking about recruitment. It's about making you feel included and making you feel that actually you can be you and come and work here.
Excellent. Okay, so anything else you'd like to add before we close off?
I do want to say, because I've made it sound like working for Stonewater is really perfect. I do want to say we're on a journey and we haven't quite gotten there yet. It's all part of a journey. We're not saying we're perfect. We're not at all. I would love to wake up one morning and believe we are, but then I'd be out of a job. So it's not about being perfect. It's about being on the journey and making sure that you take colleagues along with you, but you encourage people with new ideas, new thought patterns, new experiences to bring them along to the organization. Because one of the most important things you can contribute to an organization and to the ED&I journey is your lived experience. Everybody brings something different. I have yet to find that there are two people in this world who are completely identical, where even
Yeah.
if you're identical twins, you will have had some experiences that the other one wouldn't. And those experiences are valuable to delivering the best service you can.
Yeah, excellent points to finish on. So Cordelia, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing, your own story and so much of the thoughts and experience and wisdom that you've got. I really do appreciate that, and I hope that resonates. And also because you're a sort of thought leader, anybody that wants to sort of talk to you or the organisation, you're open and happy to do that as well, I believe.
Yeah, well, we're quite happy to share
Mhm,
our experiences and our
mhm,
learning. As I said, plot your own journey, but learn from ours.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you.
Cordelia.